Mr. Adeyemi's estate in Port Harcourt was the type of home where silence lived in every corner. The polished marble floors reflected light like mirrors. The crystal chandelier hung with the quiet confidence of generational wealth, and the staff moved through the halls like ghosts, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of a household controlled by a man whose single word could end careers. For years, his triplet daughters, Blessing, Kayamika, and Ngozi, had existed within these walls like royalty confined to a gilded prison. But now, at 29 years old, not one of them had brought home a serious partner, and Mr. Adeyemi had reached his breaking point. He sat at the head of the enormous dining table that Tuesday morning, his traditional agbada flowing elegantly. His face showed no emotion as Blessing and Kayamika exchanged worried looks while Ngozi kept her eyes fixed on her untouched breakfast. Mr. Adeyemi cleared his throat, a sound that seemed to make even the expensive artwork on the walls tremble slightly. "I have had enough of this embarrassment," he announced, his gaze landing first on Blessing. "You're 29 years old. Women your age already have children in secondary school. Yet not a single man has walked through that door asking for your hand in marriage." Blessing sat up straighter, running her fingers through her perfectly styled hair. "Daddy, relationships are complicated nowadays," she said quietly. "I do not want to hear excuses," he snapped back. Kayamika flinched beside her sister. She had always been the more sensitive of the three, and her eyes already looked moist, though she blinked rapidly to hide it. Mr. Adeyemi continued without pause. "You girls have rejected every qualified candidate I have introduced. Doctors, engineers, business owners. This ends today." He reached into an expensive leather folder and placed 3 checks on the table, each one made out for $50,000. The sound of the paper hitting the wood echoed through the quiet room. "You will take this money and leave this house immediately," he declared, "and you will not return until each of you has found a husband to marry." Blessing gasped audibly. Kayamika covered her mouth with her hand. Ngozi simply stared at her check, her face revealing nothing. Blessing stood up first. "Daddy, you are asking us to leave just like that? Without warning?" "Yes," Mr. Adeyemi replied without hesitation. "You will learn to survive on your own. You will understand what life looks like beyond these protected walls." Kayamika's voice cracked as she spoke. "But what if we cannot find husbands? What happens then?" "Then you will stay away permanently," he answered coldly. Ngozi finally lifted her head and looked directly at her father. "Does marriage really prove our value as human beings, Daddy?" Mr. Adeyemi's expression hardened even further. "A woman who remains unmarried has failed at life itself." Those words struck Ngozi like a physical blow, but she did not argue. She simply folded her check carefully, keeping her thoughts hidden behind calm eyes. Blessing stormed toward the door first, her designer heels clicking angrily against the floor. Kayamika followed behind her, wiping away tears. But Ngozi remained seated for another moment, studying her father with a quiet strength he had never noticed before. Then she stood, nodded respectfully, and walked out without shedding a single tear. Later that afternoon, the 3 sisters stood outside the estate for the first time, carrying suitcases. The iron gates closed behind them with a heavy finality that seemed to seal their fate. Their individual journeys were about to begin. 3 sisters, 3 separate paths, but none of them could predict how drastically different their stories would become. Blessing called for a taxi immediately. "I swear I will marry a senator just to prove Daddy wrong," she muttered. Kayamika sniffled quietly. "I do not even know where to begin with any of this." Ngozi looked out at the sprawling city stretching before them. "We will all find our way forward," she said calmly, just not in the same direction. It was the first hint of the surprise to come, one that would shake their father, their social circle, and even the sisters themselves. Blessing had always believed Lagos belonged to her. Its exclusive parties, its towering ambitions, its polished men with champagne in hand and connections in their pockets. So when she stepped out of the luxury car in front of her friend Funk's apartment in Lekki Phase 1, she lifted her chin with renewed determination. She refused to let Mr. Adeyemi's ultimatum define her future. If he wanted her married, she would return home with the most impressive catch Nigeria could offer. a man with power, presence, and an impeccable reputation. Funk opened the door before Blessing could knock. Blessing, why on earth are you dragging luggage like someone fleeing EFCC? Blessing pushed past her and rolled her suitcases inside. Not EFCC. My father. Funk's eyes went wide. Your father kicked you out of that mansion in Port Harcourt? He did not kick me out, Blessing corrected, dropping onto the velvet couch. He dismissed me, handed me $50,000, and told me not to return without a husband on my arm. Funk burst into laughter. Your father has a serious flair for drama. Blessing did not laugh back. This is not funny. I need a place to stay temporarily. Funk nodded immediately. Of course you can stay. But what exactly is your plan here? Blessing exhaled slowly, brushing invisible dust off her designer dress. I will find a suitable partner. You know the circles we move in. Charity galas, private auctions, exclusive dinners. I just need the right introduction to the right person. Then you are stepping out tonight, Funk announced. There's an art exhibition in Victoria Island. Perfect place to meet influential men. Later that evening, Blessing stood in front of Funk's full-length mirror, wearing a shimmering gold dress that hugged her figure elegantly. She applied her lipstick slowly and deliberately, like a warrior preparing for combat. When they arrived at the exhibition, the atmosphere smelled of old money and ambition. Men in tailored suits moved through the gallery like they owned the city, while women in expensive gowns laughed too loudly at jokes that were not actually funny. Blessing fit right in. A man approached her within minutes, tall, confident, with a practiced stride. Good evening, he said, offering a glass of champagne. I am Barrister Colonel Adebayo. Blessing smiled slowly. Blessing Adeyemi. A beautiful name, he replied smoothly. They talked about art, real estate, Lagos traffic, politics. Barrister Colonel was charming in a polished way that felt rehearsed, but Blessing did not mind. She was performing too. After about an hour, he leaned in closer. We should have dinner together sometime soon. She tilted her head slightly. I would enjoy that. But suddenly Funk tapped Blessing's shoulder urgently. There is someone you absolutely need to meet, she whispered. Blessing excused herself and followed Funk to the far side of the gallery, where a group of elite businessmen stood around a sculpture. Their laughter filled the space with the confidence of people who never worried about money. That is Chief Olyamide, Funk whispered, one of the wealthiest private investors in Lagos. And guess what? He is single. Blessing's heartbeat quickened. A man like that would silence her father forever. She approached him with calculated grace. Good evening, Chief Olyamide, she said softly. He glanced at her, surprised by her confidence. Good evening, young lady. I have heard so much about your investment work, she continued. It would be an honor to learn more about it. Chief Olyamide's eyes warmed with interest. Join me, he said. Let's talk business. Blessing smiled inwardly. This was exactly the beginning she needed. Across the gallery, the exhibition lights glowed like promises waiting to be claimed. Blessing was not searching for love. She was hunting for status, and Lagos, in all its glittering chaos, offered her the perfect hunting ground. Her father wanted a husband. She would return home with a king. Kayamika had never been as bold as Blessing. While her sister thrived in the spotlight of flashing lights, Kayamika preferred quiet corners, soft music, and familiar faces. So when the gates of her father's estate closed behind her, she felt a trembling fear she could not control. Her suitcase felt heavier than it looked, and the check in her purse felt like a burden rather than a gift. She took a Danfo bus to Suralere, heading straight to her childhood friend Amaka's apartment. The bus conductor called out stops sharply. Passengers argued over fares, and Kayamika clutched her bag tightly to her chest. It had been years since she had used public transportation, but pride could not carry her across the city. She stepped off the bus with shaky legs and uncertain steps. Amaka opened the door before Kayamika could knock completely. Kayamika, Amaka gasped, pulling her inside immediately. You look like you have been running from danger. Kayamika burst into tears immediately, collapsing onto the sofa. Father sent all of us out of the house, she said between sobs. Amaka's eyes widened in shock. Sent you out? Why would he do that? He wants us married. He gave us money and told us not to return without husbands. Amaka sat beside her, rubbing her back gently. That man has always been strict, but this is absolutely extreme. Kayamika sighed heavily. Amaka, I do not even think I am ready for marriage at all. So what will you do now? Amaka asked softly. I honestly do not know yet. Later that evening, Amaka prepared dinner, jollof rice and fried plantain. Kayamika offered to help, but the kitchen was too small for two people to work comfortably. Instead, she sat on a stool watching Amaka cook. You know, Amaka said thoughtfully, maybe this is your chance to start fresh. You have lived under your father's control your entire life. Maybe now you can discover who you really are. But Daddy will never accept me back without a husband beside me. Amaka gave her a pointed look. Kayamika, not every battle is won in a straight line. Sometimes you have to find another route forward. After dinner, Amaka told her about a job opening at a private school in Yaba. They need an assistant administrator. You are organized, patient, and excellent with people. I think you would fit perfectly. Kayamika hesitated. She had never worked a single day in her life. But the alternative was worse, wandering Lagos without any direction or purpose. The next morning, she woke early, borrowed one of Amaka's simple office dresses, and headed to the school. The campus was lively. Children running everywhere, teachers calling out across the yard, administrators rushing around with files and folders. It felt chaotic, yet somehow full of life. She approached the front desk nervously. Good morning. I am here to apply for the assistant administrator position. The receptionist, a cheerful woman named Mrs. Okafor, handed her a form. Fill this out and wait for the principal to call you. Kayamika sat quietly, observing the environment around her. Teachers corrected students, cleaners swept the hallways, and parents came in with complaints and questions. It was not glamorous like Blessing's world. No crystal chandeliers, no champagne, no designer clothes. But something about the simplicity calmed her racing heart. 30 minutes later, the principal, Mr. Taiwo, called her into his office. You're Mr. Adeyemi's daughter, he said, surprised. Yes, sir, Kayamika answered softly. Why do you want this job? Your father is an extremely wealthy man. Kayamika took a deep breath. I need to build something for myself. I want stability and purpose in my life. Mr. Taiwo studied her for a long moment before speaking. You start next Monday. Kayamika's eyes widened in disbelief. I got the job? Yes, he said with a warm smile. Welcome to the team. As she stepped out of the office, the afternoon sun warmed her face. For the first time since leaving the estate, she felt a small spark of hope ignite inside her. While Blessing chased influential men in Victoria Island, Kayamika was discovering something she never expected, her own inner strength. And though neither sister knew it yet, Ngozi's journey would take a path none of them could ever predict. Ngozi stood alone at the motor park in Ojota, her small suitcase beside her and the envelope containing her father's $50,000 tucked deep inside her bag. Unlike Blessing's bold strides or Kayamika's trembling steps, Ngozi carried a silence that felt deliberate, almost peaceful. She was not running away from anything. She was walking toward something, though she did not yet know what. Passengers shouted destinations around her. Hawkers waved pure water sachets and gala in her face, and buses roared like restless beasts waiting to depart. Ngozi scanned the signboards until she found the one she wanted. Enugu and Abakaliki route. Last bus departing in 10 minutes. She approached the driver, standing by the door. Is there still space available? The man looked her over briefly. One seat left in the back. Are you getting on? Yes, she replied. She paid her fare and climbed into the bus, settling between an elderly woman carrying yams and a young mother with a sleeping baby. The bus smelled of diesel, engine heat, and someone's takeout food from paper bag. Ngozi closed her eyes as the bus lurched forward and left Lagos behind. For years, she had felt suffocated inside her father's estate, expected to speak softly, dress modestly, and be the well-behaved daughter. Blessing was the glamorous one. Kayamika was the gentle one. Ngozi, she was the obedient shadow nobody paid attention to. But obedience, she realized, was not the same as having purpose. As the bus left Lagos behind, Ngozi's mind turned over possibilities. Marriage was not her dream. She wanted something different, something meaningful that mattered. Her mother once told her before she passed away, "A woman's life is more than the ring on her finger." Ngozi had held onto those words ever since. After several hours, the bus entered Ebonyi State. The landscape changed dramatically. Vast farmland, rows of cassava, children chasing goats across open fields. When Ngozi finally stepped down in a small rural village, a warm breeze greeted her, carrying the scent of fresh earth and ripening crops. A man pushing a wheelbarrow paused in front of her. "Good afternoon. You lost?" "No," Ngozi answered calmly. "I'm looking for a place to stay temporarily." He pointed toward a cluster of simple houses down the road. "Go to Mama Neka's lodge. She rents rooms to visitors passing through." Ngozi thanked him and walked down the dusty path. Dust clung to her sandals, and chickens scattered out of her way as she walked. Children playing with old tires stopped to stare at her city clothes with curiosity. She smiled shyly at them. At the lodge, an elderly woman opened the door slowly. "How can I help you, my daughter?" "I need a room, just for a while." Mama Neka studied her thoughtfully. "City girl, ABI, you do not look like someone running away. You look like someone searching for something." Ngozi's eyes softened. Maybe that is true. The woman gave her a small, clean room with a simple bed, a wooden chair, and nothing luxurious. But Ngozi felt more at home than she had in years. The next morning, she woke to the sound of women working outside, their voices carrying through the window. Their laughter drifted in as they worked together. She stepped outside to watch them, their arms strong, their wrappers colorful, their spirits unbroken despite obvious hardship. A woman with a wide smile approached her. "Good morning, sister. You are new here." "Yes," Ngozi said. "I am Ngozi. I am Adiz. If you need help with anything, ask me." Ngozi nodded gratefully. "Thank you so much." As she walked around the village, she noticed something striking. Most of the women were working alone, farming, selling handmade goods, weaving baskets, yet they were struggling financially. Their products were excellent quality, but they lacked the resources to reach buyers or improve their production methods. Ngozi paused beside a woman roasting corn over a fire. "You work alone?" Ngozi asked. The woman nodded sadly. "My husband passed away. It is very difficult." Another woman nearby sighed heavily. "We try our best, but without proper tools and organization, we always earn very little." Ngozi's mind sparked with an idea. What if the women worked together as a group? What if the money her father gave was not for finding a husband, but for building something powerful and lasting? That evening, she sat outside her room watching the sun sink behind distant hills. Her decision crystallized like dawn breaking over the horizon. "I know what I must do," she whispered to herself. Her journey would not be about marriage or pleasing her father. It would be about empowerment, community, and purpose. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, Ngozi returned to the center of the village with a notebook and pen. She had spent the entire night thinking, her mind alive with plans and possibilities. The women she had observed yesterday were now her focus. If they could pool their skills together, share resources fairly, and sell their products collectively, perhaps they could earn more money and gain real independence. But she had to convince them first. She approached a group of women roasting yams and sorting vegetables. "Good morning," she said softly, careful to bow slightly in respect. "My name is Ngozi. I am new here, and I want to help all of you." The women looked at her skeptically. One older woman, thin and weathered by years of hard work, frowned deeply. "Help? What kind of help are you talking about?" "I have some money," Ngozi said cautiously, pulling out a small envelope. "I want to use it to buy equipment, materials, and seeds. But only if you are willing to work together as a group and run a cooperative business. You keep all the profits. I will not take anything for myself." A murmur ran through the women like a wave. Adiz, the woman who had first greeted her, stepped forward. "You mean we can all work together and make more money?" she asked, her eyes bright with hope. "Yes," Ngozi replied, "but only if everyone contributes fairly and trusts each other completely." Some women laughed, thinking the offer was too good to be true. City girl, you do not know our ways here, one muttered. People fight, cheat, and take what is not theirs. Ngozi smiled patiently. I understand your concerns. That is why we will start small and build slowly until trust grows naturally. I am not here to control anything. I am here to help you help yourselves. Slowly, one by one, the women began nodding in agreement. I will try, Adi said first. If it works, it will be good for all of us. A shorter woman holding a basket of dried peppers added, I am in too. Maybe we can finally make ends meet properly. By the end of the day, Ngozi had formed a small team of 8 women, each with different skills. Weaving, farming, baking, selling handmade crafts. She opened the envelope and distributed seed money for supplies, writing meticulous instructions for record-keeping, production schedules, and group meetings. The women watched her in amazement as she handled every detail with care and precision. Despite her youth, Ngozi commanded respect, not with authority, but with quiet intelligence and genuine determination. Slowly, a spark of hope lit the faces of the villagers. For the first time in years, they felt someone truly believed in them. In the following weeks, Ngozi worked alongside the women every single day. She rose with the sun, helped harvest crops, baked cassava bread, and carried baskets to the small market in the village. She listened to their stories of hardship, celebrated small victories, and ensured that the cooperative remained fair to everyone involved. Word spread quickly. People came from nearby villages to sell or buy products, impressed by the women's organization and determination. One evening, as they counted the day's earnings, Adiz looked at Ngozi with deep admiration. I cannot believe this is happening, she said. We have earned more in these few weeks than we earned in months before. And it feels good, not just the money, but the pride we feel. Ngozi smiled warmly, her heart swelling with satisfaction. This is just the beginning, she said confidently. If we work together, nothing can stop us from succeeding. Meanwhile, back in Lagos, Mr. Adeyemi was growing increasingly restless. Blessing had been spotted at exclusive parties with prominent men, flaunting her charm everywhere, while Kayamika's letters were polite but vague about her progress. Ngozi, he assumed, would follow a similar pattern eventually. But no one had seen her in Lagos for weeks, and nobody seemed to know where she had gone. Little did he know, the quietest daughter had taken the boldest step of all, turning money meant for finding a husband into a lifeline for an entire community. And the shock of her choice would ripple far beyond a bony state. That night, as Ngozi watched the women laugh together over roasted yams, she whispered to herself, I do not need a husband to prove my worth. We can build something greater than anyone ever imagined. And for the first time in her life, she felt true freedom. Weeks passed, and Ngozi's women's cooperative began to gain serious momentum. The women's products, handmade baskets, woven mats, cassava flour, and dried vegetables, started selling faster than anyone had imagined possible. Local traders came to the village to buy in bulk, and even a few Lagos merchants took notice and placed orders. But success, as Ngozi quickly learned, brought its own set of challenges. One humid morning, as Ngozi organized deliveries in the village square, a man approached wearing a worn suit and carrying a briefcase that looked far too heavy for him. Good morning, ladies, he said, his voice sharp and businesslike. I am Mr. Okonkwo. I deal with supplies and transport. I hear you have started a small business here. Adiz stepped forward cautiously. Yes, sir. It is our cooperative. How can we help you? Mr. Okonkwo's eyes swept across the group slowly. I'm here to offer you a contract, but under my terms. You sell your products through me exclusively, and I'll take 35% of all profits. His smile was polite but calculated. Think of it as a shortcut to much larger markets. Ngozi felt a knot tighten in her stomach. 35% was far too much, and she sensed the man's tone carried an unspoken threat. We appreciate your interest, she said carefully, but we handle our own sales currently. We are small, but we are building something sustainable. Our priority is fairness for all members. Mr. Okonkwo's smile faltered slightly. Fairness? You may think you are in control now, but soon larger players will crush small operations like yours if you do not comply with industry standards. The women murmured nervously among themselves. Adi's grip tightened on her basket. "We cannot let him take our money like that," she whispered urgently. Ngozi squared her shoulders and spoke firmly. "We will find another way forward. Our products are excellent quality. We have buyers who appreciate that quality. That is enough for now." The man left without another word, but his warning lingered like a dark shadow over them. That afternoon, Ngozi called a meeting with the entire cooperative. They gathered under the large irako tree at the center of the village, sweat dripping in the humid air. Children played in the background, and the smell of roasted yam filled the air. "Ladies," Ngozi began, "we have a serious challenge ahead. Someone wants to take a large portion of our profits if we use him to sell our products." A wave of panic passed through the group like wildfire. "He is powerful," one woman exclaimed nervously. "Maybe we should listen to what he says." "No," Ngozi said firmly. "We did not start this cooperative to give our work away to someone else. We started it to empower ourselves and our families." Adiz nodded strongly. "Ngozi is right. We may be small, but we are strong together. We will find buyers who respect our work and treat us fairly." For the next week, Ngozi worked tirelessly without rest. She contacted Lagos buyers directly by phone, sent sample products, and even hired a small truck to transport goods herself. Every day, she traveled between villages and the city, learning logistics, negotiations, and patience. She slept very little, her determination unwavering. By the end of the week, the cooperative had secured 5 new clients from Lagos, all paying fair prices and respecting the women's terms completely. The threat of Mr. Okonkwo faded into the background, replaced by a growing sense of achievement and confidence. That evening, Ngozi sat outside her small room watching the sun set behind distant hills. The women celebrated with laughter and music, the air vibrating with pride and joy. She finally understood the true power of choice. It was not money alone, but the courage to say no that made them unstoppable. Far away in Port Harcourt, Mr. Adeyemi checked his emails obsessively every hour. Blessing's latest date with a wealthy businessman had ended in a polite rejection, and Kayamika's letters mentioned nothing about finding a husband or even dating. Ngozi's name had not appeared once in any communication. He frowned deeply, sensing that the quietest daughter might be up to something no one could predict. And for Ngozi, the cooperative was only the beginning. Bigger challenges awaited ahead, but she was ready to face them head-on, fearless and independent. By the start of the rainy season, Ngozi's cooperative had become the talk of Ebonyi State and surrounding areas. The women's baskets, cassava products, and handmade crafts were no longer just small village products. They had built a brand, a reputation for quality, and loyal customers throughout Lagos and Enugu. Ngozi had even begun teaching the women basic bookkeeping and business management, turning their small operation into something professional and sustainable. One morning, she gathered the women under the irako tree, the air fragrant with fresh earth and cooking fires. "I have an idea," she began, her voice steady and confident. "We have done well selling to buyers, but what if we expanded even further? What if we invited other villages to join us, pooling resources to increase production and reach even larger markets?" Adiz raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Other villages? That is very ambitious. Will they even want to join us?" Ngozi smiled warmly. "Some might. And if we lead by example, they will see it is possible and beneficial." The women murmured among themselves, excitement mingling with fear. Expansion meant risk. More coordination, more travel, more money invested, but also much more opportunity. They trusted Ngozi completely, and her confidence inspired them deeply. By the next week, Ngozi traveled to neighboring villages, meeting women who worked tirelessly on similar crafts. She explained the cooperative's vision clearly, showed them records of earnings, and introduced a simple membership plan. Slowly but surely, the idea spread like wildfire. Women began signing on, excited by the promise of fair profit sharing and mutual support. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Blessing's pursuit of a high-status husband continued to produce mixed results. She attended private dinners, charity events, and gallery openings, always dressed impeccably in designer outfits that shimmered under city lights. Yet each man she met seemed either shallow or intimidated by her father's enormous wealth. She started to feel a gnawing frustration she had not anticipated. Kayamika, on the other hand, had begun teaching at the school in Yaba. Her calm demeanor and patience quickly earned her the respect of both staff and students. She discovered genuine joy in helping children learn and watching them thrive, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never expected. Unlike Blessing, she did not chase men or status symbols. She was quietly building her own life, meaningfully and authentically. Back in Ebony State, Ngozi faced her first major test of leadership. A large shipment of cassava flour prepared for Lagos clients was delayed by flooding along the main road. Traders called angrily demanding immediate deliveries. Panic rippled through the women of the cooperative like a shockwave. "Ngozi, what do we do now?" Adiz asked, worry lines creasing her forehead deeply. Ngozi took a deep breath and thought quickly. "We improvise immediately. We could divide the stock among smaller buyers closer to here and send the remainder by smaller vehicles to Lagos if the truck cannot get through. It will take longer, but we can fulfill our commitments completely." Her decision calmed the women instantly. Together, they worked long hours repacking goods and coordinating alternate transport. By evening, the shipment was on its way, and the cooperative had survived its first real crisis successfully. That night, Ngozi sat outside her small room, listening to the laughter and chatter of the women celebrating. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and wood smoke. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction washing over her. This was her world now, built by her own hands and heart. Somewhere deep in Port Harcourt, Mr. Adeyemi began to hear whispers of city girl transforming rural communities with her money and initiative. Ngozi's name surfaced not as a potential bride, but as a force of real change. For the first time, he felt a stir of unease. His quiet daughter, whom he had dismissed so easily, was proving far more daring than he had ever imagined. Ngozi smiled to herself, looking at the village under the moonlight. Her path was crystal clear now. She would grow the cooperative, help more women, and show that independence was more powerful than marriage could ever be. And she would do it all on her own terms. The Lagos sun blazed over Blessing's apartment balcony in Lekki, but her excitement felt increasingly hollow. She sipped her champagne, scrolling through her phone, when a notification caught her eye. A news article about a small village in Ebony State. Young entrepreneur empowers rural women. Local cooperative flourishes under new leadership. Blessing's eyes widened in shock. She read quickly, scanning for the woman's name at the bottom of the article. Ngozi Adeyemi. Her lips parted in complete disbelief. "Ngozi? Our quiet sister Ngozi?" She muttered, setting down her glass abruptly. Kayamika, who had arrived for a weekend visit, peered over Blessing's shoulder curiously. "What is it? What did you find?" Blessing handed her the phone without a word. Kayamika read carefully, her eyes lighting up with genuine admiration. "She is using the money Daddy gave her to help people in need." Blessing shook her head slowly. "I thought she would be struggling like the rest of us, or at least looking for a husband like Daddy demanded." Kayamika smiled softly. "She has always been different from us. Quiet, yes, but observant and thoughtful. She is doing something truly meaningful." Blessing, usually competitive and proud, felt a pang of envy she had not expected to feel. Meaningful, sure, but she is in a small village far from Lagos. No one important will notice her except the village itself. "Daddy will notice," Kayamika said quietly. Blessing stopped herself mid-thought, realizing her father's likely reaction. "Wait, Daddy might actually be shocked beyond belief." Kayamika nodded firmly. "We should visit her," she said cautiously. "See what she has accomplished firsthand with our own eyes." Blessing hesitated, her pride battling her curiosity. "Do you really think we should go there?" "Yes," Kayamika said with surprising firmness. "I think it is time we see the bigger picture beyond ourselves." A week later, the sisters arrived in Ebony State. The bus ride was long and bumpy, and Blessing's designer heels clashed badly with the earthy scent of the countryside. But when they stepped off the bus, they were met by a group of women laughing, carrying baskets, and bustling with infectious energy. "Welcome," Adiz called out, running toward them with a bright smile. "You must be Ngozi's sisters." Blessing looked around, genuinely stunned. All of this? She did all of this herself? Kayamika's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "It is absolutely incredible," she murmured softly. Before they could move forward, Ngozi appeared, dressed in a simple wrapper and blouse, her hair tied back neatly. She smiled warmly but cautiously at her sisters. "Blessing, Kayamika, I did not expect visitors from you." Blessing swallowed her surprise and spoke carefully. "We had to see for ourselves what you were doing." Ngozi nodded calmly. "I understand completely. I wanted to build something sustainable and meaningful, not chase after a husband just to please Daddy. The money from Daddy helped start this, but the women did all the hard work themselves." Blessing's voice wavered slightly. "I never imagined anything like this was possible. I just followed Daddy's orders without thinking differently." Ngozi shook her head gently. "I respect Daddy deeply, but I also respect myself and these women. I could not use the money for marriage when I could create real opportunities for others instead." Kayamika stepped closer, her voice thick with emotion. "You have inspired me too, Ngozi. Seeing you here, doing this, it makes me think completely differently about my own life and choices." Blessing's pride twisted uncomfortably inside her. "I guess I was wrong to think you were just the quiet one. You're doing what neither of us had the courage to do." Ngozi smiled faintly, a mixture of humility and determination in her gaze. "We all have our own paths in life," she said softly. "Yours is different from mine, but that does not make it less valuable or important." The sisters spent the entire day touring the cooperative. They watched women weave baskets with incredible precision, measure flour for sale, and coordinate deliveries efficiently. It was a rhythm of community and purpose that Blessing and Kayamika had never witnessed before in their lives. By the evening, as the sun dipped behind distant hills, Blessing admitted quietly, "Ngozi, you have shown me something I did not know I needed to see. All of this is real success." Ngozi simply smiled warmly. "Thank you, Blessing. But it's not about me alone. It is about what we can all do for others when we work together." Kayamika hugged her gently, tears streaming down her face. "You have changed so much more than just this village. You have changed us too, fundamentally." That night, as they sat around a small fire under the stars, Blessing and Kayamika began to understand the shock their father would feel when he finally learned what Ngozi had accomplished. An achievement that no husband, no party, and no luxury could ever match or surpass. Ngozi, meanwhile, gazed at the stars above Ebony State, silently preparing for the next challenge ahead. Her vision had only just begun to unfold. Back in Port Harcourt, Mr. Adeyemi sat in his study, the city lights casting long shadows across walls lined with awards, framed certificates, and family portraits. He had spent the day trying to track his daughter's progress obsessively, but emails from Blessing were about social events and parties, and Kayamika's letters spoke of school routines and nothing more. Ngozi's name had not appeared in any correspondence whatsoever until a phone call from a Lagos trader changed everything completely. "Mr. Adeyemi, you absolutely need to see this," the trader said, his voice urgent. "There is a cooperative in Ebony State. The woman running it, Ngozi Adeyemi, she is transforming the entire community. Her products are in high demand, and she is making a real, lasting impact on people's lives." Mr. Adeyemi frowned deeply, gripping the arm of his leather chair tightly. "Ngozi? My quiet, obedient daughter Ngozi?" "Yes, sir," the trader confirmed. "She has organized the women, expanded the operations significantly, and the profits are steady and growing. People are talking about her across Ebony State, and even Lagos buyers are coming to her directly now." Mr. Adeyemi leaned back in his chair, completely stunned. "I gave her money to find a husband, and she built a business empire instead?" The trader's laughter was soft but pointed. "Exactly, sir. She is proving that she does not need a husband to succeed in life." The cooperative is thriving entirely because of her vision and leadership. The billionaire sat in complete silence, staring at the family portrait on the wall. The image of his 3 daughters, once neatly posed and framed, now seemed to mock him silently. Blessing and Kayamika had followed predictable paths that he understood, and he had assumed Ngozi would be exactly the same. Yet she had chosen independence, initiative, and empowerment over wealth, status, or marriage. The next morning, Mr. Adeyemi booked a flight to Enugu immediately, then arranged for a driver to take him to the village. He did not announce his visit to Ngozi beforehand. He wanted to see everything with his own eyes, to witness the consequences of her choices firsthand without warning. When he arrived, the village air was thick with the smell of earth and cooking fires. Children ran past carrying baskets playfully. Women called to one another across the market cheerfully, and the cooperative's activity hummed like a well-oiled machine running perfectly. Mr. Adeyemi followed a dusty path until he found Ngozi standing among the women, her hands dusted with flour, her wrapper simple but neat, her eyes focused intently on organizing deliveries. For a long moment, she did not notice him standing there. Then slowly, her expression changed. She straightened, her hands stilling as if sensing the presence of the patriarch she had both feared and respected her entire life. "Ngozi," he said, his voice calm but heavy with unspoken emotion. "Is that really you?" She turned fully, bowing slightly in respect, as she always had. "Yes, Daddy. Welcome to a bony state." Mr. Adeyemi took a step closer, surveying the cooperative with wide eyes. Baskets of woven goods, bags of cassava flour, jars of palm oil, and other products were stacked neatly everywhere. Women bustled about efficiently, greeting Ngozi warmly as they passed. He felt a strange mixture of pride, disbelief, and deep unease settling in his chest. "What is all this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ngozi smiled faintly, meeting his eyes directly. "It is our work, Daddy. I used the money you gave me not to find a husband, but to help women earn their own livelihoods independently. We organize production, sell collectively, and share the profits fairly among all members. It is sustainable and growing every day." Mr. Adeyemi walked slowly among the women, observing their faces carefully, the efficient coordination, and the palpable sense of community and purpose. No wealth, no luxury, no husband had built any of this. Ngozi had done it herself, with nothing but determination and compassion. He turned to her, his voice softer now than she had ever heard it. "You did not follow my instructions at all. You did something I never imagined possible." Ngozi looked him directly in the eye without flinching. "Daddy, I respect you deeply, but I also respect myself and these women. I chose a path that builds more than just a single family. I built independence, opportunity, and genuine hope for an entire community." Mr. Adeyemi exhaled slowly, sitting down heavily on a wooden stool nearby. The full magnitude of her actions sank in like a weight. His quiet daughter, the one he had dismissed as merely obedient, had achieved something far greater than wealth, status, or any husband could ever provide. Blessing and Kayamika arrived shortly afterward, having traveled with him on the flight. Both were stunned once again at the sight of the cooperative, realizing Ngozi's courage, vision, and determination far surpassed their own efforts back in Lagos. Mr. Adeyemi finally spoke again, his voice measured and thoughtful. "Ngozi, I have completely underestimated you. You have shown me something I could never have taught you myself." Ngozi smiled, the first hint of real relief appearing in her eyes. "Thank you, Daddy. But this is just the beginning. There is so much more we can do together." As he looked at his 3 daughters standing before him, 3 very different women, Mr. Adeyemi understood that his greatest lesson was not about wealth, influence, or arranging marriages. It was learning to let them choose their own paths forward, and realizing that true impact sometimes comes from the quietest voices speaking the loudest truths. The day unfolded with genuine celebrations. Blessing and Kayamika joined in enthusiastically, helping pack goods for delivery, laughing with the women, and learning firsthand how the cooperative functions so smoothly. By the afternoon, the sisters were exhausted but exhilarated, finally recognizing the real power of teamwork, purpose, and humility working together. That evening, around the communal fire under the stars, Mr. Adeyemi spoke again, his voice softer and more vulnerable than Ngozi had ever heard it before. You have all shown me different lessons I needed to learn. Blessing, ambition is not just about appearances and status. Kayamika, kindness and patience have real power beyond what I ever imagined. And Ngozi, courage can move mountains forward, even if it begins in a small village nobody notices. Blessing nodded slowly, her pride finally giving way to understanding. I see that clearly now, Daddy. I have been chasing all the wrong things for all the wrong reasons. Kayamika smiled through tears. And I have learned that true fulfillment is not just about following instructions blindly. It is about creating your own path with purpose and meaning. Ngozi looked at her father and sisters, feeling a sense of completeness she had never expected to feel. Her journey had started quietly, leaving the estate with nothing but a check and her quiet resolve. Yet it had grown into something far larger and more meaningful than she could have ever imagined possible. Mr. Adeyemi stood slowly and gestured toward the cooperative with genuine respect. Ngozi, your work here is your true legacy. I am proud of you, not because you follow my orders, but because you followed your heart and your mind with courage. Ngozi felt a rush of emotion, but she remained composed as always. Thank you, Daddy. The cooperative is just the beginning of something much larger. We can expand further, teach more women, and change countless lives for the better. That is my real goal. Blessing and Kayamika nodded in agreement, now fully committed to supporting their sister however they could. The three triplets stood together by the fire, united not by obligation or wealth, but by respect, love, and genuine understanding of each other's choices. As the moon rose over a bony state, the village hummed with vibrant life. Ngozi's vision had created more than just financial independence for struggling women. It had sparked hope, empowerment, and a powerful model of what women could achieve when given trust, guidance, and the freedom to choose their own destinies. Mr. Adeyemi watched his daughters in complete awe, realizing that the quietest among them had become the boldest and most impactful, and in doing so had transformed not only an entire community, but also his understanding of family, success, and what true legacy really means. Ngozi smiled softly, knowing this was just the beginning of many lives she would touch and transform, proving that sometimes the most shocking choice is the one that changes everything for the better. Please kindly hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with others. This means a lot to us.